My guest today is Emma Raimi. Emma is an emerging talent in Hollywood. She is born to filmmaker parents Sam Raimi and Gillian Green, but she's carving out her own space in the industry, separate from her notable family legacy. Her career started as the girl with camera, acting opposite J.K. Simmons in 2007 Spider-Man 3. Since then, she's made appearances in Bratz, Drag Me to Hell, Oz the Great and Powerful, Fanboy, and the upcoming feature Year One with Elizabeth Yu. Her talents don't just lie with acting. She also writes, produces, and directs. We met recently on the set of REM, where she stars in the horror short film from writer-director Blair Bathory. Emma, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Thanks for having me here.
You were born in Santa Monica. Both of your parents are filmmakers, and Bruce Campbell is your godfather. That sounds like a meme. You may be cool, but you'll never be cool as my godfather is Bruce Campbell.
That could definitely be true. You're definitely a hard person to compete with. Hopefully I can live up a little bit.
Then your grandfather and your I put this up at the wrong time. Gosh darn it. It is little you. What were you like as a child, and what was it like coming from a filmmaking family in Santa Monica?
As a child, I was just really interested in theater. I'd been doing theater my whole life. I knew I always wanted to act, but I was mainly just doing plays and theater in school, and really sort of got into acting in film after I graduated college. I graduated with a degree in theater as well, and then kind of sort of got into film after that, and now here I am. But as a child, let's see, I was bullied actually in elementary school and a little bit in middle school, so I didn't really have many friends, and I turned to art kind of as a way to express myself, and now here we are. I'm luckily not getting bullied anymore, so now I'm the bully. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, so it was kind of hard growing up a little bit in school, but I had a good childhood.
What's Under the Bed is a show where I speak with horror filmmakers about their biographies, careers, and the things that shaped what scares them. Before the influence of movies, what scared you the most as a child? Was there a ghost in the attic or a monster under the bed?
Oh, absolutely. I was terrified of everything, the dark. I was really scared of spirits, specifically the spirit of my dead grandfather coming to get me, which is weird because I don't know where I got that from. He was dead, but I was worried that he was going to come try to visit me. I was also really scared of puppets. Puppets terrified the absolute crap out of me. I had to be during a puppet show in preschool, I had to be pulled out because I was screaming. And then ever since then, I'd had horrible nightmares about puppets. So I would say those are the main things that come to mind.
Many kids are first introduced to horror through children's stories like Where the Wild Things Are or Hansel and Gretel. Were there any fairy tales or children's stories that scared or excited you most as a child?
Definitely, I loved Where the Wild Things Are. That didn't scare me. I liked kind of mystical monsters. I had always liked. Loved Lord of the Rings growing up. I liked fantasy, and mysticism. But what scared me was true horror. Like, for instance, the children's scary stories to tell in the dark. That absolutely terrified me, especially the pictures. And those stories haunted me, and they still haunt me to this day because I actually it's really terrifying for me to drive at night because of the story in that book. I believe it. I don't remember what it's called. It's called High Beams, actually, I believe. And it's where this woman is driving alone and the person behind her keeps flashing their high beams and she's terrified. and this person who's following her won't stop chasing her, flashing their beams. And lo and behold, at the end, she finds out that there was someone in the back seat the whole time trying to lift a knife to her. And every time that person did, the person behind her flashed the high beams. So now, because of that story, I'm afraid to drive alone at night because I always keep looking back behind me, and it's very unsafe. So I think someone else do it, or someone come with me every time. No.
Did you grow up a fan of horror, and did your parents have any restrictions on what you were able to watch as a kid?
I never had any restrictions with what to watch. Always encouraged me to, from a young age, have the whole spectrum of art to choose from. That I mean, because of my family, everyone's very, everyone's pretty artistic. Both my parents are, so they never had any restrictions with what to watch. I grew up with my dad showing me all the classic movies. Not horror movies though, actually. I discovered horror movies on my own. My dad is actually terrified of horror movies and won't so he never showed them to me. So I kind of discovered them on my own. Yeah, I've always loved horror movies, but definitely wasn't one of those movies that one of those genres that we watched at home because yeah, my dad is really terrified, and he's a wimp because he says the reason I make horror movies is because I'm terrified of them, and some kind of sadistic, narcissistic complex that he has, where he takes out the horror on other people, but it's because he himself is terrified. So that's the story about horror films.
Guillermo del Toro famously has made his house into a museum to horror movie monsters. By all accounts, Stuart Gordon, who directed cult horror classics like Reanimator, Dolls, and Castle Freak, had a home as tame as a country cottage. I assume your father doesn't have a bunch of horror collectibles, but what is your household? What is the Raimi household like?
There are lots of, in terms of film memorabilia, there's lots of that. Lots of film. I don't know if he has a closet with all of the film from all of his movies, like the actual film, stored up in the house. And we've got lots of props lying around, lots of terrifying props from specifically Drag Me to Hell. Actually, we have a bust of the old woman, the woman who is the antagonist, Mrs. Ganoush. We have a really lifelike looking bust sitting around in our living room, and it terrifies everyone that comes through. So that's kind of the goal. Whether or not we terrify the people that come through our house, we probably do, but the stuff lying around is even scarier.
We just celebrated Halloween. Were there any specific Halloween traditions you had growing up?
No, not specifically. Besides trick-or-treating, we never did anything as a family tradition wise. Yeah, so in terms of Halloween, there wasn't really anything too unique.
Did you make any movies as a kid, and do any of those films still exist?
Yes, I made countless movies as a kid, and they are somewhere, I want to say, on my old computer that is in storage right now, and I'm just too lazy to get them off of the computer. They're on like a few different computers, and these are old computers, and I don't even know if I'd be able to access the memory on them. But so for all intents and purposes, they're lost forever.
Located about 15 miles from your childhood home sits the infamous Cecil Hotel. The hotel opened on December 20th, 1924. It was a Saturday. The hotel gained a reputation for violence, suicide, and murder. In the 1980s, the hotel was the temporary residence of serial killer Richard Ramirez, known as the Night Stalker. In 2013, the Cecil Hotel became the site of the tragic and mysterious death of the Canadian tourist tourist Alyssa Lamb. Security footage of her acting erratically on the hotel's elevator went viral across the internet. Her naked body was found days later in the hotel's industrial water tanks. Her story has been the inspiration for the films Elevator Game Followed and episodes of American Horror Story. Did you hear stories about the Cecil Hotel, or were there other local urban legends and hauntings you heard about growing up in Santa Monica?
Absolutely, the Cecil Hotel. Every time something happened at the Cecil Hotel, I was obsessed with it as a, child and teenager growing up. And in 2013, I was 14 when the Elisa Lam incident happened, and I was obsessed because the idea that scared me the most was that the hotel guests would turn on their water, and the water would be a different color and taste funny. And the fact that these people were drinking dead body water, like a dead body tea, that's disgusting. Or I don't know why I just said that, but essentially what it was, terrified the absolute hell out of me. Curse on this, but if
you can, you're allowed to. But
and so I had been obsessed with, the Cecil Hotel. I got really into studying the Night Stalker as well. And LA is such a good backdrop for horror phenomena, just because you have the noir setting, and it can be very dark and twisted with Hollywood, and that the backdrop of Hollywood makes a great setting for horror stories. And I'm trying to think if there was a location closer to me than the Cecil Hotel or the Cecil Hotel. Not that I can think of, but I was obsessed with that instance.
We met on the set of the short film REM, which is based on an urban legend. How did you get involved with the project, and is there anything you can tell me about it?
Yeah, so I was originally brought in to work with Blair and Jed. Jed, our wonderful producer, extremely talented, on another project that we were all going to produce. And then that project ended up not going through. But Jed, Blair, and I all still really got along. And they reached back out to me with this other project, REM. And they asked me if I wanted to work on it. And I was so flattered. I was like, wow, you guys actually liked me that much over a Zoom call. Want me to star in your movie? Like, what if I'm horrible? I was like, are you sure? Like, don't you want to see my reel first? And they were like, yeah, no, we're sure you're fine. I was like, oh, like, all right. Luckily ended up, and I sent them my reel, and I was like, here's a sample of my acting, just so you know, if you still want to cast me. And they were like, we do. And now here we are, and the rest is history.
You've mentioned earlier about being afraid of your grandfather's ghost coming back to visit you. Kelsey Davies was one of your co-stars in REM. She's a medium and known for her social media presence, ghost investigations, and her haunted doll, Lola. What are your thoughts on the paranormal?
I am totally open to it, and I'm totally jazzed by the idea. I hope that the paranormal is real. I hope, because that's something to believe in. That's great. I love mysticism, and I love the existence of mysticism. And if we don't believe in it, then we won't be able to tell as great stories about it, in my opinion. The reason my dad is so afraid is because he truly believes that that nightmare fuel could be real. And that's what I think makes a great horror director, is not necessarily to believe it on like a scientific level, but is to believe in a world where this is possible. And that is absolutely my mindset. I love Kelsey, and she's very talented. And I actually, I took her to this horror show here, live horror show here in LA. And she wanted to do a paranormal investigation of the theater. And she asked me if I wanted to join it. I was so flattered. I thought to myself, I'm can't believe someone's asking me to come on a real paranormal investigation, because I grew up watching Zach Bagans and all those shows, and I had always wanted to do that, at least try it. And when Kelsey invited me to do that with her, I was so thrilled. So I think that's coming up soon, and I can't wait. So I hope that sums up my views on the paranormal.
I think it does. You attended Crossroads School for Art and Science for middle school and high school. What were you like in high school, and how much of your high school experience do you think informs who you are today?
Yeah, so I was always friends with, it was just the gay theater kids, isolating ourselves in the theater the whole time, and that's kind of what my situation was. I studied really hard, and I did theater, and I was definitely not a cool kid at all. I was cool in terms of like my interests, but in terms of, I was kind of a prude in high school. I didn't drink, I didn't do drugs, I didn't do anything except study and do theater, which is which is who I was. And I was really into music and art and theater, and that was my life.
In an age of bullies, active shooter drills, and COVID lockdowns, do you think horror movies can provide catharsis for teenagers trying to cope with these real life fears?
Absolutely. I think there's a reason that the horror genre is so popular and struck so deeply within the LGBTQ plus community. Those who are generally made to feel like outsiders have found a solace in horror films. People who feel like the people in society, not everyone, but a lot of people who feel like they don't belong to the general societal order of things, who, I think horror movies are made for people like them, people who have been made to feel like freaks, people who have been made to feel different, tend to gravitate towards the horror genre. And I think it can be an incredible coping mechanism. Also, the fear and anxiety you get watching a horror film it's a great therapy to distract yourself from any fear and anxiety that you have in your own life going on. Every time I'm anxious or am having a really rough day, I know that a horror film might not always make me feel better, but I know that being able to worry about someone else's problems, something else that is so incredibly terrifying that it could never happen in my own life, does make me feel better. That being able to access fear about something else for once is a really cathartic experience.
Mm-hmm. You earned your Bachelor of Arts degree in theater, as you mentioned before, from Northwestern University, and studying abroad for a year allowed you to see Paris, Dublin, and Berlin. Were you a different student in college than in high school? And in what ways do you think traveling abroad changed you as a filmmaker?
Definitely. I minored in German in college. So the reason I got to study abroad a lot was because I was studying German. And so I lived in Berlin and Vienna. Berlin, I did study abroad there, but then moved there separately on my own to do an internship there and take some time off college. And then COVID happened. And no, it's Emma. Sorry, my mom is I'm doing an interview. I'm so sorry.
No, you're good.
Anyway, studying abroad has really allowed me to I was definitely a different person in college. I definitely let loose, and I definitely studied. I definitely didn't slack off, but I definitely became a more mature, more socialized, and kind of very liberated, as so to speak, very liberated in kind of a way that I was able to put actions to my liberation as opposed to just an idea. So yeah.
You are, oh, sorry. I read the same question. I am having
Oh,
trouble today.
my
uh,
family around trying to talk to me. It's all good.
you shared some of these travels with your friend actress Joey King. Would you tell me about the matching tattoo you have on your foot with Joey King?
Yeah. So we have a matching oy vey, because we are loud, annoying, complaining Jewish women, and we love to say oy vey. Complaining is a way of life. And so that's Yiddish. If people don't know, I think everyone knows what oy vey is. I think it's like the most standard Yiddish complaint. And so we got them on the bottom of our feet because we're stupid, and most painful place to get matching tattoos, and it is the most excruciating pain having your foot, the bottom of your foot tattooed. But having said that, we ended up going through with it. We got our tattoos, and I didn't take into account that I have flat feet and Joey doesn't. So Joey's tattoo still looks the same. Mine has like most of it is rubbed off by now, which you didn't think. You thought tattoos are permanent. Not if you have flat feet and it's on the bottom of your foot. It has almost completely. It is like the O and the Y is there, but that's it. That is something to take into account. It was definitely I put it right on the arch of my foot where I don't have an arch, so it's just rub it against my shoes all day, and now it's almost come off. So we're gonna have to get it redone, but hopefully in a better location next time.
Were your parents always supportive of your decision to become a filmmaker?
No, definitely not. And my parents, especially my dad, was always, "Are you sure you don't want to go to law school or ed school?" You know, he was supportive. However, he never ever gave me handouts. I had like a few cameos in his movies, like a few lines. Spider-Man 3 was probably like the most I've ever like he's ever given me ever. And he's like, "You really have to do this on your own, and I'm not going to give you anything. Essentially, I'm not going to like give you an actual role in anything, because then you wouldn't have earned it." And he believes he really values hard work, because he came from almost nothing and kind of just a guy from Michigan, and he made it himself. And so that's kind of he has that's his work ethic. And so now that I've graduated and I've started getting projects on my own, both acting and directing, he's thoroughly impressed, because he's like, wow, I didn't know. Okay, like you're doing it on your own. Like now, like I think now he finally respects me as a director and an actor, because I've gotten it on my own. And of course, my last name definitely helped. I'm not going to say that. That I'm sure it did. But in terms of being supportive, he never gave me anything. I was never given anything. Wasn't given money for my movies. Yeah. So that, like now that I'm doing all the things that I'm doing now that I've gotten, he is actually taking an eye to my stuff, and he's like, "Oh, great!" Like now I think he would be open to produce it for my eyes on one of his movies, for me to maybe produce one of his films, or us to work together in the future. Now I think he's starting to be open to it.
Cool. You star in another horror short film called Devil's Prism. Then you have a role in a comedy short called The Virgin. You produce and direct your father in the comedy Stop Whining and Start Winning. Then you have the comedy short film Cured coming out, which you wrote, produced, directed, and star in. Do you think comedies age better than horror movies, or is it the other way around?
I think they go hand in hand. I think, I think horror ages better personally, actually, because horror can be, but in a different way. I think what we find funny can change through generations, whereas I think new generations now love old horror movies for something that they can offer that new horror movies can't, you know, because of the kitsch and the camp, I think is more appreciated amongst that is appreciated amongst new generations, where I think a sense of humor can I think that changes a lot, and I think what different generations find funny changes drastically. So I'm going to go ahead and say I think horror ages better. I mean, of course, they go hand in hand. Horror and comedy are best friends, but I'm going to go ahead and say horror just because of the artistic, the way that the horror is expressed, and the artistic design of different horror films becomes important, even if not, it was always important, but becomes even more important, I think, the more time that goes by. And I think it becomes easier to appreciate as time goes by.
I want to produce films, and I also write. I am curious if shorts are a viable way to launch a career as a filmmaker. Would you explain the professional benefits of appearing in short films as an actor? And as a filmmaker, what's the hope or the process for a successful short when everything is done right?
Right. Shorts can be really beneficial for, if not for not all the other reasons other than it's expensive to make a full-length movie. So, and it's expensive to make a short film. So, but short films are a lot less money. So it's a lot easier to do. So I think making short films is where everyone has to start, I think most people start with making short films, and that through connecting with people and their crew and the cast, and it's all about connections and the people that you work with on your short film. You can be like, oh, I love that DP, but I wasn't a huge fan of that AD. And then you choose the people that you love to work with, and then you bring them onto the next project, and you do the same thing with the next project, and then the next project, and then soon enough, you have your solid group of your solid group, and you'll find yourself in a position of, hey, let's write this feature and let's start pitching it. But I think having shorts are very important, because film festivals are important, if for no other reason than to say, hey, my film premiered at South by Southwest. Will you give me money for a feature film? I think people are more likely to say, oh yeah, okay. You know, I think film festivals can be very corrupt, but I think they're not useless in terms of having some credits behind your name.
Sam Raimi is your father. He's directed tentpole movies like the Spider-Man franchise or Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. He's directed and produced some of the most important horror films of the past 40 years. He's probably best known for Evil Dead. It's not only a terrifying film, but the creative, low-budget filmmaking was so remarkable and effective that it inspired a generation of independent filmmakers. You've grown up on sets and been surrounded by film. Now you're writing, producing, directing your own projects and doing your own thing. In what ways does your approach to filmmaking differ from your father's?
It differs very greatly, because he never pushed me into being in the arts. If anything, like I said, he pushed me away from it. So I had to find my own creative process, and my creative process is very connected with the theater and is very actor centric. Whereas I think a lot of filmmakers they went to film school, or they're more technical. They know how to work a camera, but they don't exactly know how to work with actors. My creative process draws from everything I've learned. I've been doing theater since I was 5, and then majored in it. So the one thing I know is theater, and I bring theater into my creative process 100%. And his process is more technical, I think, and mine is more, I don't want to say spiritual or emotional, but more like on a human level, about connecting with your cast and connecting with your script. I think the breaking down of the script is a lot easier once you've if you've been an actor and you've been on the other side, and you know what it's like to not have your cast and crew connect with each other. In theater, there are a million different ways, like creative. You can't do a play without having your whole cast and crew connect with each other. It just won't work. So I take a lot from that, whereas I think my dad is a lot more technical.
Mm-hmm. What's your writing process like, and who's the first person you show a script to when you're done?
So my writing process, I love to bounce everything off of my friend and collaborator, Erica Cantor. Shout out, Erica. She completely understands my humor, completely understands what I'm going for, and will give me the right notes. My other collaborator, Emma Flanders, who doesn't live here anymore, unfortunately, but she is the co-founder of my production company, Don't Watch This Productions. And they give great notes, and they are wonderful collaborators. And I make sure to have to select the people very wisely with who I want to share my material, because some people might not understand what I'm going for. Whereas, like, if I'm writing a comedy, I'm always going to run it by those two people because they understand what joke is trying to be made. Whereas if I'm writing a horror film, I'll probably run it by Blair and Jed. Blair and Jed, because they know exactly what they're doing in terms of horror. So it depends.
Which do you find most creatively fascinating, if it's satisfying? It's not fascinating, satisfying. Writing, acting, or directing?
That's a great question. I think it's got to be between acting and directing. Creatively satisfying. I think it's more satisfying to be a director because you have control over everything, or at least perceived control. And you can always speak on what you want and what you don't want, what you like and what you don't like. So at the end of the day, with the director, my dad always tells me a director's never happy with their final product. Is never, because they never feel like it's quite done. And that's how I feel about every project I've directed. I'm like, no, it's not done. Like, something needs to change. It needs to constantly be improved. So that it can be dissatisfying in that sense. But with acting, I think I can't choose which one is more creatively. I think more creatively satisfying directing, because you have control over the cinematography, the set, the creative design, the production design. Whereas as an actor, you only have control over yourself. I would think, for me personally, it's more liberating to be an actor, because having those lines to confine you kind of makes you feel more liberated in a way. That doesn't make any sense, but I feel like I have a lot of control of myself as an actor. And it's what I've studied forever, and I just feel very safe as an actor, and a little bit more in my element. So that would be the difference. Sorry about rambling.
No, you're good. It was great. Your father produced the series Zombie Roadkill, written by former guest and friend of the show Henry Gayden. Do you prefer fast zombies or slow zombies?
Slow zombies for sure. Fast zombies are that's the whole point of why zombies are scary, in my opinion, because they walk slowly, but they end up getting to you no matter what. Fast zombies is like, is that even a zombie? I don't know. I mean, obviously faster is scarier, but like, not when it comes to zombies. That's the whole thing. That's why they're scary, is because they're so slow, but they don't stop moving.
Fair enough. I read you sing and have a beautiful mezzo-soprano voice. Do you think more songs have been written about love, lust, or heartbreak?
Heartbreak for sure. I think heartbreak. At least the ones I listen to, because I think the best songs aren't happy songs, aren't just about, I mean, All You Need Is Love is a great song. Is it? I don't think it's the best kind of song. I like, you know, songs with depth, and that's why I think most songs are. And I mean, when a heartbreak happens, I think people are motivated to write music, to create when they're at their lowest. So yeah.
Yeah. What projects do you have coming up, and where can people follow you?
Oh my gosh. So I have a few projects coming up. I recently starred in an indie feature film, Year One, that's going to be coming up soon. Actually, it's coming to a bunch of film festivals. I'm not quite sure which ones yet. I need to double check. Let's see. I have a short film that I just directed, and we are applying to film festivals right now. So I'll let you know. We haven't heard back from anyone. No decisions have been made yet, but we've applied to quite a few. So I'm just looking forward to, it's mainly my short film that I'm really looking forward to. And let's see, I've got another short film that I have coming out called Devil's Prism that I acted in. And yeah, I want to say those three. And of course, most importantly, REM, REM, the short film that is almost picture locked, and we're applying to film festivals with that. So yeah, we've got a few things coming out. I think those wasn't the top of the list. I bet I'm gonna hang up and be like, oh my God, I should have told them about this. But yeah, it feels weird to talk about things that I'm in. I'm like, I always am so scared that it'll seem like bragging. I get kind of frozen up, but yeah.
Good. Keep mentioning him, but your father's films and franchises are beloved by people around the world. But growing up with them, I imagine you may have a different perspective than the fans. This last question is a Sophie's choice. If only one could remain, would it be the Evil Dead trilogy, the Spider-Man trilogy, or Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness?
I definitely am going to go with Evil Dead trilogy, because I think it's the most culturally significant. I'm saying that from a queer person's perspective who loves horror movies. So someone else might be like, no, Spider-Man is way more culturally significant. For me, the Evil Dead trilogy is culturally significant because I love camp and I love kitschiness and I love what it represents. So I'll have to go with that. But yeah.
Yeah. For the record, I love all of them. But is there anything you want to ask me before we go?
Where did you get everything on your desk? It's wonderful. I love the bust that I have in my house.
This guy his name is Peter, with a Y. He comes from, he's fun. He came from K&B Studios, Howard Berger and Greg Nicotero's makeup effects studio. He was a gift from Howard Berger. Me and my father went to LA at one point, and we got a tour there because I had interviewed Howard before. And we went to his office, and I ended up pointing out him because of an inside joke me and my father have. And we come back home to a package at our front door, and it was this guy.
I love that. That's the best gift ever. With the little opening the package and it's just a head.
Yeah, I even said that when I was opening it. I was like, what if it's just a head? And my father was like, no. And then I opened it and I'm like, oh my God, it's a head.
It's actually a head. Your dad's like, shut up. Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
This guy came from a garage sale, I think. I found him and I liked him a lot. This guy came from, his name is Buddy. I named him Buddy. He's a sweetheart. He's in every one of my videos. But I think he just came from a website or something. This one I got for Christmas. I don't know where he came from. My dad gave it to me, but he's a lot of fun to have.
That would definitely one that's interesting to open in a package for sure.
Yeah.
Uh,
What was funny about oh yeah, this guy I got when I was like young. He's a creature from a black lagoon. He's an Aurora figure, which were like I think in the 80s, 60s. In the 60s, that was way off. In the 60s were like paintable figures of the Universal monsters, and I have loved Creature from the Black Lagoon since I was very young.
oh hell yeah, that's what I was thinking he was. I was like, is that Creature from the Black Lagoon? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I love everything on your desk. I love I love ornaments on a desk. I love it.
Yeah, I love them all. I have like a freaking I have a collection. It's just off camera.
Your house. That's about my house. I'm curious about your house. Definitely has a lot more interesting shit than mine. I can already tell it does.